Alias Ceann Comhairle Tánaiste Tá choras agan maidir le másnú do foiisí a tá Oireachtas a bhreise acu na bhfuil ag obair agus na rú riamh obair sa stáit seo agus na bhfuil Oireachtas a dúnú factá. We see this morning that RTE has shone another light on an issue that we have had to raise in this House for far too long and for far too often. That is the times for children waiting for an assessment of need, of which the average waiting time is 19 months, despite a legal requirement for assessment to be completed within 6 months under the Disability Act of 2005. Some are waiting up to 2 years and over. The 6-month timeframe is absolutely crucial because that recognises the vital importance of early intervention for children in these circumstances. It is one of the only legally set timeframes which the HSE must adhere to, and it was put there for a very valid reason. Despite this, the state has consistently failed to live up to its legal requirements to ensure that children can access an assessment of their needs. This is crucial to ensure that the best possible outcome for every child. And we see that if we are to do this and do it within the time frame, it will be possible for proper outcomes for every child. But that isn't happening. 9 out of every 10 children are being failed by this state and failed with their legal right. Yet children are being left behind, and parents are at their wits' end waiting for an assessment for their children. They know that without diagnosis for needs like autism and communication difficulties, their children won't be able to get the vital supports and services they need. Now, a couple of weeks ago, our leader, Mary Lou MacDonald, raised this with the Taoiseach here, and she raised the fact that there are currently parents before the courts trying to address this situation to obtain an assessment of needs for their children within the legally specified timeframe. We have here again, Tánaiste, another situation where citizens of this state are having to go to court to vindicate their rights and the rights of their children. And I'm not going to comment on any individual case, but it has become the default position of the state to force people into legal, stressful and expensive legal battles instead of throwing up its hands and saying that they were wrong. These parents deserve an apology and support, not a legal battle to ensure their children are afforded their legal rights in the first place. You should put yourself in their shoes, in the shoes of the parents. Imagine a day in their lives. Imagine a week in their lives. Imagine a month or often a year where there is no light at the end of the tunnel, watching on and worrying as delays cause harm to their children, harm that is absolutely avoidable. Walking this walk with those parents is the only way to understand why the time frame of 3 and 6 months is set as a legal right. So can I ask the Tánaiste, will the government do the right thing? Will they ensure that children receive the care in which they are entitled to under law? And will you act to ensure that no parent of a child with special needs must go to court to obtain vital and legally guaranteed support for their children?
Thank you, Ceann Comhairle. First of all, allow me to formally congratulate you on your recent election to the office of Ceann Comhairle. I know you'll do a fabulous job, and congratulations. I want to thank Deputy Doherty for raising this important question.
The microphone.
Excuse me. I may have to move seats to get a mic. My apologies. I just want to thank Deputy Doherty for raising this important question in the Dáil today. I think all of us know from our personal lives, people we know, our constituents who come to us with their problems and their difficulties, how big an issue this is. Children waiting far too long to get an assessment of needs. And we know about more than 6,000 now, I think, are waiting more than 3 or more than 6 months in order to get the assessments of needs that they need. It puts a lot of stress on them, puts a lot of stress on their parents and families, and of course we know that the delay in assessments of needs can be very expensive in the long run because earlier intervention means better outcomes sooner. And a delay in intervention can result in higher costs for the taxpayer in the longer term. So this is a problem that has existed for a long time, and it is one that we acknowledge and want to resolve. The new government is committed to improving access to assessments and therapies for all children who require them. And in order to achieve this, some important reforms are now underway. The HSE Disability Services is currently engaged in a major reconfiguring of its existing therapy resources for children with disabilities into multidisciplinary, geographically based programmes. That's as part of the National Programme for Progressing Disability Services for Young People. And the objective of this is to make sure that we bring about equity of access to disability services. So it shouldn't matter what part of the country a child lives in, they'll have equal access to those services. And also to provide consistency with a clear pathway for children with disabilities and their families to these services, regardless of where they live or what school they go to, or the nature of their particular difficulties. Additionally, a revised standard operating procedure for an assessment of need has been developed, and implementation began back in January 2020. But obviously a lot of that was delayed as a consequence of COVID and the fact that assessments couldn't happen one-to-one. They could happen over video, but not in person. And I think everyone understands why that's not the same thing. The new procedure provides a standardised approach to assessment across all areas and is designed to ensure that children with disabilities and their families can access appropriate assessments and intervention as quickly as possible. The reforms involve important structural changes that will have a positive impact on services for all children with disabilities, including those with autism. And the budget provided an additional £2 million in funding for an autism plan for those services.
Thank you, Taoiseach. Deputy Doherty.
Taoiseach, you say you understand, and rightly you make the point that this has been ongoing for a long time. Indeed, 2 years ago when I raised this with the Taoiseach on the floor of the Dáil, there were 3,850 children who were failed by the state at that point in time. Today it's over 5,000. It is only going one direction. It is getting worse. 2 years ago we heard excuses from your government in relation to the reforms that were being introduced. The reality is, Taoiseach, that the state is fighting these parents in the courts. There are numerous cases where parents have been forced to go to the courts to vindicate the rights of their children with special needs because they have been failed for their legal entitlement to have assessment of need carried out within 6 months. The state isn't saying, we're sorry, we'll support you, we'll help you, we're trying to do better. The state is fighting these cases. These families are families that are at the wit's end. Being a parent of a child with additional needs or special needs is a challenge in itself without having to battle every single day for services and supports. And this is only the first hurdle.
Thank you, Deputy.
After the assessment of needs, there is a numerous other battles then to get the speech and language therapy, the SNAs and all of the other things, school placements. So can you give a guarantee that you will not fight these parents in the courts anymore, that you will put in place a robust package of measures to make sure that no child is denied their legal right?
Thank you. Thank you. Taoiseach.
Thanks very much, Deputy. I can't possibly comment on court cases that I have no information about, and even if I did have information about them, I probably couldn't comment on them either. But certainly, anybody's entitled to take their case to court. But I think we all appreciate that this issue won't be resolved in the courts, and it wouldn't be right to give any preference to people who go to court as opposed to those who don't. This is not a problem that will be solved through court cases or by paying lawyers' fees. This is a problem that, if it can be solved, will be provided and solved by additional resources where they're needed and the proper use of existing resources as well. And that's the approach the government is taking.